Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, I have some bonus content for you guys. The bonus content we'll be covering today will be in the sport of boxing. In today's bonus segment video, I'll be sharing my fight prediction for this weekend's fight taking place in the sport of boxing between Vergil Ortiz and Israil Madrmimov. So, this fight will be taking place on the Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol undercard. Now, fingers crossed that this fight remains because throughout the week, it's been bizarre for this card. I mean, Labelized is one of the greatest cards of this generation in the sport of boxing. Still is a fantastic card, but unfortunately, we have seen some fighters have to pull out of the card due to being sick within a few days before the fight. That being Floyd Schofield, whether or not that's true or not remains, but Floyd Schofield pulled out of the fight against Shakur Stevenson due to the fact of being ill. And then today, IBF heavyweight champion Daniel Dubois had to pull out of his fight due to a sickness against Joseph Parker. Now, I trust Daniel Dubois' character way more than I trust Floyd Schofield's character. But I hope if both are sick, I hope both recover well, and I hope to see them very soon in the sport of boxing. But as the show goes on, we still have this loaded Vergil Ortiz versus Israil Madrmimov fight on this card. And I've been excited since day one to see this super welterweight fight on this card. So I think this is going to be one of my favorite fights personally on this card. But I got your guys' fight prediction for you guys here. Let's get into the storylines for this particular fight. So the storylines for this fight is Jaron Boots Ennis did not want any part of this card. Now, anybody that knows, Jaron Ennis was originally supposed to be on this loaded card. It was actually supposed to be Jaron Ennis versus Vergil Ortiz, with Jaron Ennis making his debut up to the super welterweight division to fight Vergil Ortiz. Well, plans changed, and Jaron Ennis did not want to move up to 154, and he wanted to remain at 147 to unify or to become the undisputed welterweight champion. So that fight went up in smoke, and instead, that opened the door for Israil Madrmimov, a very confident and very great fighter at this division, opened the door for this big fight between himself and Vergil Ortiz. So thanks to Jaron Ennis not stepping up to the plate and moving up to 154 is one of the real reasons why we are getting Vergil Ortiz versus Israil Madrmimov. So in a sense, I like Jaron Ennis a lot, but thank you for that because we're getting this monumental fight at 154. Now, which fighter is riding the wave of momentum heading into this fight? Now, you can look at it in two different ways. Israil Madrmimov lost his previous fight against Terence Crawford, and Vergil Ortiz won his previous fight. Now, what I mean by riding a wave of momentum, I'm not talking about the win-loss column. I'm talking about how you looked in your latest performances. Even though Israil Madrmimov did lose to Terence Crawford, he gave Terence Crawford a run for his money, and it was not a cakewalk for Terence Crawford. And not saying to brag about a loss, but Israil Madrmimov did go 12 rounds with Terence Crawford. We're talking about Terence Crawford, who basically knocked out every single opponent that he had at welterweight. When he moved up to 154, he could not do that to take the WBA title from Israil Madrmimov. So even though it's a loss, I count it as a small win for Israil Madrmimov because he proved to the world of boxing what he could truly do, and more people know who he is now after that performance. But then when you look at Vergil Ortiz's last performance against the Ukraine fighter Buachak, he did win that fight by majority decision. However, Vergil Ortiz defensively looked suspect at times because he got dropped twice by the Ukraine fighter and Buachak. So, again, which fighter is really riding the wave of momentum here? Ortiz or Madrmimov heading in this fight? And last but not least, which fighter wants it more? Now, I feel like right now, this super welterweight division at 154 in the sport of boxing is wide open. I mean, Terence Crawford is, yes, he is a WBA champion, but he has his sights set on September when he's moving up to the super middleweight division to fight Canelo Alvarez. So that leaves one champion not really around to defend his title or really aspirations to stay. Earl Spence is MIA. He's not returning to the boxing ring anytime soon. That was another fighter that was supposed to move up to this division, make some noise. Fedora is the unified WBC and WBO world champion right now. Yes, he's a world champion, but anything can happen. And then Tim Tszyu just got exposed in his last fight. And then Jermell Charlo is still MIA, former undisputed champion at the super welterweight division. So with everything I just said, I think the division is wide open, and I think a win here for either Vergil Ortiz or Israil Madrmimov will open the door for them to get a world title opportunity at some point in 2025 in this 154-pound division. But let's get into the tail of the tape here. Israil Madrmimov has 10 victories, 1 loss to his resume, has 7 victories coming away of knockout. Former WBA super welterweight champion, stands at 5'8" with a reach of 68 inches. Then I'm looking at Vergil Ortiz. Vergil Ortiz is 22-0, 21 victories coming away of knockout. Stands at 5'10" with a reach of 70 inches. So the height and the reach goes in favor of Vergil Ortiz for this fight against Israil Madrmimov. So these are the following game plans that I have for these respective fighters to follow if they want to walk out of Saudi Arabia with their hand held high and possibly on their way to a title shot at 154 at some point in 2025. Starting off with Vergil Ortiz. I think Vergil Ortiz is going to have to fight and exchange bombs in the pocket. If you look at Vergil Ortiz, you look at his previous fight against Boachuk, you look at his previous fights on film, what Vergil Ortiz likes to do best is fighting in the pocket and exchanging bombs in the pocket. He has no problem fighting in the pocket and going blow for blow, tack for tack in the pocket. And that's when you get the best offensive version of Vergil Ortiz, because when he's doing that, when he's landing the power strikes, when he's putting the combinations together, that's when he becomes a tremendous counterpuncher. So I think that's where Vergil Ortiz needs to go for this. And we'll see if he does that against Israil Madrmimov, but I think that's one good game plan for him. Next is fight in the inside. Now, again, this goes to fighting in the pocket, but Vergil Ortiz, when the fight is fighting in the inside, he is a tremendous fighter fighting in the inside. He likes to land the overhand right and likes to dig down to the body to slow his opponents down. Where you got the overhand right going upstairs, and that gets your opponent to block, and that creates for them to basically brace for impact for the overhand right. And where they have the guard up, and then while they're blocking, Vergil Ortiz could dig down to the body with body shots, right hooks, left hooks to the body, possibly land a liver shot to shut everything completely down. If you could do that to your opponent, they're gonna slow down in the boxing ring. So I think that's important for Vergil Ortiz. And last but not least, I think Vergil Ortiz has to pace himself. Now, yes, Vergil Ortiz has been in the boxing ring 22 times, 22 pro victories for him, like I just said a few moments ago. This is the biggest fight of his boxing career, and he's got to pace himself in there. And yes, you can land the big shots. You're going to have to do that to defeat a caliber fighter like Israil Madrmimov. But landing the big shots is nice, but you got to pace yourself, because what I saw when he had that really good fight in the summer 2024 against Boachuk, they were going back and forth for all 12 rounds, and that was an entertaining fight. However, there were times in the second half of the fight, if you look at it, round 7 through 12, even though Vergil Ortiz shined and won that fight, there were times where Vergil Ortiz looked pretty gassed and fatigued because he did not pace himself throughout the fight. You got to be able to pace yourself and prepare to swim for 12 rounds, because this is not going to be a cakewalk. You got to put everything together in order to defeat a caliber fighter like Israil Madrmimov. So he's got to be alert in the later rounds, be able to swim in the deep waters, and have a great cardiovascular pace for the duration of 12 rounds. You can't bank on a knockout here, because if Crawford didn't knock him out, I don't know if Ortiz can knock him out, but just saying. But those are the game plans that I have for Vergil Ortiz. Now, game plans I have for Israil Madrmimov. I think Israil Madrmimov is going to have to cut the ring off and control the pace of the fight. Now, what I've seen out of Israil Madrmimov, he is a master of cutting the ring off. And that's pretty rare to say for somebody that's only had 11 pro fights. But Israil Madrmimov does a great job of cutting the ring off on his opponents, walking them down, and bringing the fight coming forward, bringing the fight towards them, having his opponents box off the back foot, or being trapped on one side of the ring because Israil Madrmimov has cut off the ring. So he's pretty good at doing that. I think he should do that against Vergil Ortiz to trap him and to make Vergil Ortiz make some mistakes that Israil Madrmimov could possibly capitalize on. Now, next, I think Israil Madrmimov is going to have to fight in different angles. Now, when you think about Israil Madrmimov, he's got good balance, good footwork. I don't know. He's got an awkward style of how he moves his upper body while in the ring. I mean, it works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But it's just an awkward style where you see him bounce and pace with the upper body movement. But it works and it pans out because he does have the good footwork and he can fight in different angles, fight in different lateral movements, move in different lateral movements, I should say, in the boxing ring. And I think with that style is going to be hard to not only adjust to, but that could frustrate Vergil Ortiz offensively, because if you have your opponent bouncing around and Vergil Ortiz might not pace himself out and Israil Madrmimov is fresh as a daisy, hardly gassed, that could frustrate Vergil Ortiz. And we've seen Israil Madrmimov do that in late rounds against Terrence Crawford. Possibly, I would say possibly this could be one of the downfalls for Vergil Ortiz if he doesn't adjust to it, or his corner doesn't adapt to this style that Israil Madrmimov could throw at him. And last but not least, I think, like I said about Vergil Ortiz, Israil Madrmimov has got a mean overhand right as well. That is the best punch in Israil Madrimov's arsenal, in his toolbox. I think that's his best punch that they could bring to the dance against Vergil Ortiz. I think if he can mix the overhand right with combinations to bait Vergil Ortiz into making mistakes, I don't see how Israil Madrmimov will lose. So those are the game plans that I have for the respective fighters to follow. But with that being said, give me Israil Madrmimov to win this fight against Vergil Ortiz by split decision. I think it's going to be a really fun fight. I'm looking forward to seeing how these super welterweights match up against each other. In my opinion, it's going to be one of the best fights on that loaded Arthur Beterbiev Dmitry Bivol card. But I've had this one circle for weeks and weeks. But I feel like Israil Madrimov's style is going to be too much for Vergil Ortiz to handle. And hear me out on this. The style that Israil Madrmimov has of fighting in different angles, having great footwork, having great upper body strength to be balanced, to move around at different angles, I think that's going to frustrate Vergil Ortiz. And Israil Madrmimov didn't beat Terrence Crawford with that style, but he gave him a run for his money. So I feel like if Israil Madrmimov can cut the ring off, landing the overhand right, mixing in with several combinations, he could possibly send Vergil Ortiz to the canvas, because Vergil Ortiz looked very chinny in his last performance when he got dropped to the canvas 2 times against Boachuk, the game Ukraine fighter during the summer. Not saying that Israil Madrmimov can hurt Vergil Ortiz, but it's possible. But I just think this style that Israil Madrmimov brings is just going to be too much for Vergil Ortiz to handle. Plus, I've seen Vergil Ortiz against Boachuk also, like I just said a few moments ago, get gassed in the later rounds of the fight. Even though he won by majority decision, he still doesn't know how to pace himself just yet. So, big test for Vergil Ortiz, but I think he's going to fail the test. And I think Israil Madrmimov is going to win this fight and possibly look for another world title shot by the end of 2025 in this super welterweight division. But that is my fight prediction between Vergil Ortiz and Israil Madrmimov. That is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off. And I'll see you guys on next week's episode.